Today I'm going to tell you what I think are the 100 best watches ever made. There's going to be some obvious stuff, but there's going to be some surprises too, and perhaps even a few controversial choices, including some that don't make it onto the list at all. Which watch is number 1? Place your bets in the comments right now. 100. It's literally the smallest mechanical watch in the world, so the Caliber 101 powered Jaeger-LeCoultre 101 has to be on the list of best watches ever. At just 14mm long by 4.8mm wide by 3.4mm thick, the Caliber 101 is literally smaller than a paracetamol, which is just bananas since it was first created almost a century ago. Queen Lizzie II had one, so it's got to be good. 99. Who said Chinese watchmaking was no good? The Seagull 1963 chronograph is a classic hand-wound entry into the complication market, and is an easy choice thanks to the incredible value for money. Not so easy is figuring out which one is the genuine one. 98. It wasn't exactly a rip-snorting sales success, but the Nomos Lambda is literally the most watch a watch has ever been. If watch designers charged by the line, the Lambda would be the result, a layout that does the absolute most with as little as possible. It is purer than the Virgin Mary in an Evian advert. 97. When I couldn't afford a Black Bay, I bought an Oris Divers 65, and I'm glad I did because it's an absolute legend of a watch. Come bath time, you'll be able to channel your inner Jacques Cousteau with an icon more 60s than getting really good at music and then dying too soon. 96. They don't call it the El Primero because it's a South American cartel boss. In fact, they don't call it the El Primero at all. This is the Chronomaster original from Zenith, and you should accept no substitute, because as the name implies, it was the first. Except, it wasn't, but it still saved the Daytona. 95. Nothing says money more than a Monegasque Casino, and despite that sounding as tasteful as Holy Communion at Hooters, it's actually one of the most exquisite watches Roger Dubuis made. Considering the current direction, that's not saying much, but the La Monegasque is an absolute favourite of mine, so I'm willing to take a gamble on it. Lol, casino jokes. 94. Budget Swiss Behemoth Longines always packs a punch when it comes to reanimating its archives, and the Heritage Classic sector is one of the best. Why hand over your life savings to Patek Philippe when you can simply spend the holiday budget instead? 93. It's always time for cocktails in Japan, and nowhere better is that emphasized than in the watch they literally called the cocktail time. What was mistakenly taken as a design concept in a Seiko board meeting, which turned out to simply be a leisure suggestion, it became the go-to watch for budget elegance and after-hours karaoke. 92. Jacob & Co. may have the hit rate of a blind sniper, but even the most cataract-ridden combatant gets a bullseye every once in a while, and the Astronomia is such a score. There are many watches that claim to put the universe on the wrist, but very few that make you feel like it might actually be in there. 91. If you're looking for master levels of control over your chronograph and calendar, then the Master Control Chronograph Calendar from Jaeger-LeCoultre is a must. The naming convention may hold up as well as a marshmallow mantelpiece, but the execution is absolutely rock solid. 90. They've been making watches for so long now, we're not even sure why anymore, and so to conceive something completely original is an almost impossible task. That didn't faze Colloquium, who bent the laws of time and space to bring a simple watch concept that's as fresh as a mint-flavoured Tide Pod. 89. In the immortal words of Jack Johnson, we'll sit beneath the mango tree now. But more importantly, it's always better when we're together. And that's the spirit in which Simon Brett assembled a team of the best horological artisans to create the Chronometra Artisans, an amalgamation of all the toughest techniques in watchmaking. 88. If the Nomos Lambda is the most watch, the Longines Master Calendar Chronograph has the most watch, at least at the entry level. With more hands than a Star Wars convention, the Master Calendar Chronograph is a deserving second appearance for the disenfranchised legend Longines. 87. Sometimes a watch is so bad it's actually good, and that's absolutely not the case for the pupil-puckering Rolex Daytona Sacco. With a leopard print dial and a strap made from Masambula's undercrackers, it could only be made worse with a ring of orange gems lining the dial, which it has. Nevertheless, Nicolas Cage has one, so it's on the list. 86. Christopher Columbus may have been cancelled, but the Zenith built in his honour remains one of the most fascinating, and most forgotten, complications ever made. Unlike statues of the man himself, the gyroscopic escapement remains upright no matter what, an achievement that took barely 166 components to realise. 85. De Bethune is not only winning when it comes to watchmaking imagination, it's also managed to revive the outdated practice of guilloche with the incredible XS Starry Seas. The irregular engravings represent the rolling waves to such great effect that every purchase comes with a complimentary pack of Dramamine. 84. A watch in widescreen will most certainly not be to everyone's tastes, but the cue ball hour indicator of the Hautlands HL Sphere is impossible not to enjoy. Twanging from one number to the next every 60 minutes, it's pure ocular satisfaction with every advancement. It's literally the most fun you can have with a small round thing without swallowing it and it being drugs. 83. Despite the name, Romain Gaultier's Logical One makes as much sense to me as waterproof dishwasher tablets, and I mean that in a good way. Not only is the brain-scrambling constant force mechanism capable of keeping it real for 2 solid days, it offers a better finish than a Thai massage parlor. 82. A stunning watch with a specialist movement and ties to watchmaking legend Kari Voutilainen for less than 2 weeks of sun, sea and sand. You might think I'm talking sour seaweed, but thanks to the horological Houdinis at Ophion, the OPH 786 Velos is just that. 81. Want Patek quality but lacking almost all the readies? Chopard's got your back with the LUC XPS Forest Green, a watch whose price to quality ratio is so favourable, I'm almost suspicious. What happens if you buy one? Does Chopard own your soul? Worth it. 80. Like whoever your least favourite politician is, the Hermès Le Temps Suspend is a watch that simply gets more baffling with every passing moment. At first it's a watch that tells the time, and then it's a watch that doesn't tell the time at all, and then it's a highly complicated tri-retrograde display with a mechanical memory and the sleight of hand of a Barcelona pickpocket. 79. Most people dream about their teeth falling out or being unable to go to the bathroom. However, De Bethune's Denis Flageolet spends his nights reliving the 1986 Disney classic Flight of the Navigator, where generic American boy and Pee Wee Herman escape Sarah Jessica Parker's clutches in the Terminator T-1000. In an effort to bring mashed potato night with the family back to normality, Denis instead relives his nightly visions through the Dreamwatch 5. 78. It's not the size that counts, but how it slips in, and the Hangzhou caliber ELA 05MN slips into the Baltic MR01 very nicely indeed. Thanks to the small but capable micro rotor, the MR01 manages a lavishly svelte 9.9mm thick, bringing Breguet levels of elegance for blockbuster prices. 77. Owning a watch whose name belongs to someone who's not been dead for the last 200 years is a uniquely special experience, especially when that name is Remy Cool's and the watch is the Tourbillon Atelier. Simple, slick and sumptuously executed, the Tourbillon Atelier ticks more boxes than a hypochondriac's health insurance. 76. If thin isn't thin enough, then thinnest is what you'll want, and the Bulgari Octo Finissimo Ultra Kosk is the thinnest they got. At 1.70162384mm thick, it's so slender that all the other watches say horrible things about it behind its back. I heard the Ultra Kosk has a bit of a problem. 75. People give a lot of credit to Audemars Piguet for changing how we think about watches, but really some of that at least has to go to Rolex. The King Midas is not only a completely wackadoodle watch with a bonkers design inspired by ancient aliens, Greece, it also emerged 10 years before the Royal Oak, and it was a favourite of mumbling hair Elvis Presley. 74. Yes, it's uglier than hot frog spawn, but the Rolex Yachtmaster 2 also pioneered the dastardly smart ring command, one of the most underrated achievements in watchmaking. Shame they don't make it in Braille. 73. If Fiat stands for Fix It Again Tony, then Panerai stands for PA, automatic, never. Energy recovery always interactive, because the iconic shape of the underwater apparatus that is the Luminor only came to be since the Italian Navy were too cheap to make it self-winding. 72. Some say the detent escapement is far more efficient than the traditional Swiss lever, but just too difficult to implement in a wristwatch, while others say, what are you talking about, Andrew? This is a funeral and you need to be quiet now. But award-winning watchmaker Raoul Pages says, hold my white lightning. Here's the Regulateur à Détente RP1. Nice. 71. Governments may have forgotten about the little guy, but Tissot didn't, bringing the ever-popular integrated form to budget buyers in the shape of the PRX. This little buster is the village bicycle of watchmaking. 70. When I hear the expression golden handcuffs, there's only one thing that springs to mind: the Vacheron Constantin 222. I don't care what it is, you've got me under lock and key for one of those puppies. 69. Jaeger-LeCoultre are back at it again with the Ultra Thin, this time mastering the 29.5 day moon cycle in the form of the Master Ultra Thin Moon. If you see someone wearing this watch, you listen up, because they're about to spit some wisdom. 68. If your aspiration is to become a non-corporeal star child, why not relive the adventures of scientist and astronaut David Bowman on the bus to work with Kari Voutilainen's GQ? A word of advice: the computer's an asshole. 67. Smash it, bend it, twist it, poke it. And no, I'm not talking about a good Saturday night in. This is Casio's G-Shock DW5600, the world's first watch with built-in Stockholm Syndrome. 66. In the 1960s, people were wowed by the transistor radio and the Flintstones. Seems almost unbelievable then that, in the same year, two blokes travelled 11,000 metres beneath the waves to the deepest part of the ocean. Joining them on the outside was a stowaway, the Rolex Deep Sea Special. All returned to the surface safely. 65. If the Japanese tourist board created a watch company, it would be Grand Seiko, and if the view of Lake Suwa before dawn looks anywhere near as good as the watch, then it'll be absolutely worth the trip. 64. In the bone-throwing Olympics, Max Buser of Horological Wizards MB&F is guaranteed a medal for the Mental Mad 1. Originally conceived as a thank you to all the friends who'd supported him, it has since become a twizzling totem for cash-strapped fans of MB&F's more expensive creations. 63. The Omega Ploprof is to dive watches what Axon Enterprise is to laser tag, an absolute thug of an object designed to bully the sea into submission. Most watches have to resist the force of the water, but in the case of the Ploprof, the water has to resist the force of it. It's not so much water resistant, more that the ocean is Ploprof shy. 62. You might call the Nautilus Patek Philippe's most outstanding icon, but to that I say piffle, because it's the 5327G that makes for the perfect picture of old man Patek. It is quintessential, archetypal, prototypical, and all the other words that make my point sound more clever. 61. They say dogs match their owners, but in the case of the Hodinkee Burkus Black Hole Tourbillon, it's more the watch matching its creator. A Czech fever dream of complexity and insanity, André Burkus is a watchmaker whose imagination is no place for amateurs, and neither are his watches. 60. Take a classic chronograph, put a classic caliber in it, throw in some orange, and you win a prize. Well done, Nevada Chrono King Valjoux 23. 59. With the starting price of a slice of ham and a packet of hobnobs, the Seiko 5 Sports Collection gets a Lifetime Achievement Award for just being bloody decent. This budget-busting prize awaits anyone willing to navigate the gauntlet of the Seiko website. 58. This one isn't so much a watch as it is a movement, the unfettered imagination of mechanical romantics Agenhor, the Agengraph. Complex, beautiful, and resolutely bonkers. 57. Allwork's roots are relatively restrained by today's standards, but back in 1997 the UR101 was madder than a bag full of beavers. Without this watch, we'd all be wearing the Hamilton khaki field and eating Soylent Beige. 56. Where every other big watch brand is pushing up prices, good guy Vacheron Constantin went the other way and released an entry-level option into its collection. If Keanu Reeves made watches, it would be the 56. 55. First he made an annual calendar with just 3 extra parts. Then he made a perpetual calendar with just 9 extra parts. This is the genius mind of Ludwig Oechlin, brought to life through Oxen Jr. Next he's going to solve fusion power with just a handful of coins in a baked bean can. 54. We've mentioned Allwork, and I think it's fair to mention Atawak too, for bringing the enormous power of the satellite complication to the average person. Like the personal computer, smartphone, and perhaps the most life-changing consumer advice ever conceived, the air fryer, the Atawak Tarantula brings the future to the masses. 53. They made it by hand, at Grubel Forsey. It's the first one they made. This is the Grumble Forest Handmade 1. 52. After upsetting the industry with the time-telling Babybel that was the Swiss Mad, H. Moser decided to make amends with the follow-up Swiss Icons, a celebration of every emblematic element of Swiss watchmaking history. Basically a scramble suit for the wrist, its overwhelming visage is widely rumoured to be thief-proof. 51. The Rolex Submariner is here. Next. 50. When you do something too much, it gets boring. And for Vianney Holter, normal triple-axis tourbillons were just Yawnsville, so he upped the game by adding another balance in tandem for the Deep Space Resonance. It takes him 3 years to make just one. 49. You want the squarest of square watches. The Tag Heuer Monaco is rounding off no corners. 48. They say the Datograph is the Lange to have, but the slimmer 1815 chronograph is the one I'd choose. That movement is pure eye crack. 47. In the immortal words of Jack Johnson, upside down, who's to say what's impossible? Ludovic Ballard agrees, and that's why his numbers are the wrong way up. 46. Relative newcomers Space One overcame second album syndrome by fast-tracking straight from Piper at the Gates of Dawn to Dark Side of the Moon, with the cosmological creation that is the Tellurium. Careful with that axle, Eugene. 45. The Harry Winston Opus series existed as a showcase of upcoming watchmaking talent, but it all came to a head with the Opus 11, which was just so incredible the series almost wasn't worth bothering with anymore. It's The Simpsons Season 8 of watchmaking. 44. Look at the Citizen Ciosa for a second, then look at the price. Now look at the Ciosa again, you get it. 43. George Daniels' most celebrated creation is called the Space Traveller. That's already enough to make the list. Also, it's f***ing awesome. 42. Making America actually great again is J.N. Shapiro and the Resurgence, bringing exceptional handcrafted watchmaking back to the good old US of A. If you want a Roger Smith but don't like the accent, here's your alternative. 41. Affordable watchmaker meets national treasure Michael J. Fox for the 288,000 VPH Frederic Constant Slimline Monolithic. 40. Buying a Breguet is a lifetime commitment because, just like a dog, they're not worth a whole lot at resale. So if you're going to do it properly with the Tradition 7047. It's got your tourbillons, it's got your fusées, and it's got your chains. And it's more Breguet than Abraham Louis' underwear drawer. 39. If you want a watch that's more British than singing the national anthem through a mouthful of steak and kidney pie in the rain, then the Fears by Garrick is going to blow your trousers off. Just don't try to make small talk with it. 38. The Aquanaut is better than the Nautilus. There, I said it. 37. Rolex really let the best man spend the wedding night with its bride with the Black Bay 58 GMT, a cut price alternative to the one that continues to get away. This Coke isn't cut with anything though, and is an absolute purist's dream. 36. Rolex is back once more to throw shade on the Royal Oak by pointing out that its first quartz watch, the 5100, was dishing out integrated goodness 2 years earlier. Rumour is Gerald Genter designed that too, but people say that about anything with an angle. 35. Never mind pushing the envelope. When it comes to accessible high horology, Christopher Ward's Bel Canto has put the envelope in another envelope and posted it to Mars. Speaking of red things, if you like my unique red Bel Canto and wish you could have one too, now you can, for a limited time only. Check out the link in the description before it's too late. 34. The Bulgari may be the thinnest, but the Piaget did it cooler with the Altiplano Ultimate concept. It's James Dean to Bulgari's Jared Leto. 33. Who doesn't love the horrifying visage of Hell's abomination, the circus clown? Exactly, and that's why Konstantin Chaikin has conceived every nightmare you've ever had into a wristwatch. Unfortunately, due to minimal water resistance, it probably won't float down there. 32. A few years ago, in a hotbox board meeting at Omega HQ, one executive said to another, "What if we, combine a chronograph with a minute repeater?" The others all said, "Dude." And now we have the Omega Speedmaster Chrono Chime. 31. If Blancpain had played its cards right, the 50 Fathoms could have been the most successful watch in all the land, but instead it's been commemorated in plastic. Still, it was the first, maybe. 30. Oh, Longines, you really dropped the ball with the Legend Diver, but I still love you. 29. Currently itching my wallet most is the Chopard Alpine Eagle because it is lovely and I want one. That is all. 28. It's impressive for a non-Swiss watchmaker to have one icon, let alone two, and yet Grand Seiko has added the pale pink Shunbun to its lineup to achieve exactly that. Some say it's inspired by the tastiest of all the French fancies. 27. It may be more boring than an alternate reality where Ferris Bueller did not have a day off, but nevertheless it's as steadfast as a butcher's dog. I am indeed talking about the Tudor Black Bay 58. You don't love it, but you can't hate it. 26. when you're allowed to take a single page of notes into the exam with you. Zsuzsa the guy who figured out how to write more on the edge, because not only does the Reverso Hybris Mechanica quad triptych manage to fit a bunch of complications on the front and back of the reversible watch, but also on the front and back of the cradle as well, for a total of 11. 25. Actually, I've changed my mind. The Crador Ichi 2 is the most watch to ever watch, but this time at a level of excess and perfection that makes Howard Hughes look like a hippie. 24. The crystalline icon that is the Grand Seiko snowflake. Colder than a polar bear's freezer, the snowfields of Japan are brought to life within the dial of the Spring Drive poster child. Time to put on another layer. 23. Yo dog, Cartier heard you like movements, so they put a movement in your movement so it can move while you move. 22. I think the only duo that could make me happier than MB&F collaborating with H. Moser for the Pandemonium would be if Sirs Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen got together to sing me happy birthday. 21. Everyone loves the Casio F91W. Everyone. Yes, even them. 20. Studio Underdog left everyone else in Kansas when it took the leap over the rainbow and into the colourful world of Oz, only with less flea-bitten lions and more fruity deliciousness. Follow the melon rind road. 19. It may not be the first or the best, but it is the mostest, and that's the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, the most Gerald Genter watch ever Gerald Gentered. 18. The Van Cleef Lady Garden, known in the original tongue as Her Floral, is just about the most impressive watch ever made. 12 flowers open to tell the time in a different arrangement every time. Just watch out for the bees. 17. It may be the biggest piece of crap since Ghostbusters 2016, but this pressed plastic turd has probably done more to convert people into watch collecting than any other object ever made. Yes, that's like crediting bitey dogs for rabies research, but you get the point. 16. The Ressence Type 8 is as slick as a varnished sea snake, a vision of the future, but from the past of what the future could be. George Jetson had one, maybe. 15. There's proving a point, and then there's the Erlangen-Zoner triple split, which slices up time more ways than Albert Einstein. There's more parts than a Guy Ritchie film, and it will cause more head scratching than a Velcro hat. You have been warned. 14. It's only right if we have the most watch to include the most chrono, and that accolade there goes to IWC for the Portuguesa. Timing an egg has never been this sexy. 13. The most famous watch from the most famous contemporary watchmaker, the F. Pigeon Chronometre Bleu, is a masterclass in doing it right without doing too much. It's the Kimi Räikkönen of the watch industry. 12. The people at Grand Seiko once read an internet comment saying they weren't a proper watchmaker, and so they created the Constant Force Tourbillon Kodo just to prove them wrong. Bit of an overreaction. 11. If choosing is hard and you just want perfect, the Oyster Perpetual is the easiest decision since Cake or Death. Anything else is just mucking about. 10. Actually, I want to change my mind again. The most watch to ever watch ever is the Philippe Dufour Simplicity. Clue's in the name, because it's made by watchmaking legend Philippe Dufour and is simple. 9. If you thought Ludwig Oechlin's 9-part perpetual calendar was impressive, wait until you see what he did with the Ulysse Nardin Freak. That's the entire escapement masquerading as the minute hand, and whilst the disguise is as convincing as an elephant in a coat trying to get into the opera, it isn't half cool. Also, silicon, first watch ever. 8. This is going to be as controversial as Ted Bundy's babysitting business, but the first ever Richard Mille, the RM001 of 2001, was a seminal moment in the turning of the tide. Before that, watches were as fun as a wet firework. 7. Would I do jail time for an MB&F LM101? Yes I would. 6. One of the best watches in the world ever is, and I'm sorry to say it, the Apple Watch. No single watch is worn as much as this one, and whilst it's hardly an enjoyable experience, it's still one step closer than reaching into your pocket for the time. It's not the hero we deserve, but the one we need. 5. For number 5, I've specifically picked out the Cartier Tank Must. However, pretty much any tank will do. Not only is it as solid as the armoured vehicle it's named after, but it's as regal as a beagle in an ermine coat. 4. Wait, now bear with me. This, the Patek Philippe Calatrava, is the most watch that's ever been. Ever. Last one, I promise. 3. In at number 3 is the Omega Speedmaster. It's the watch all the astronauts wore. It saved Tom Hanks. It's cooler than the other side of the pillow. It is watch lore that you must at some point own one. 2. The second best watch ever is the watch all the astronauts actually wore, the Rolex GMT Master. Why did they wear that instead? Because fast flying, legend Chuck Yeager wore one, and he was their hero, just like Joseph Gaiety is mine. 1. Here it is, the best watch ever. Are you ready? We've had the most watch ever, but actually, by definition, this is the most watch ever. At 90.8mm across and 50.55mm thick, with the most complications ever fitted in a watch ever at 63. It is quite literally the most watch ever in the world. It is, of course, the Vacheron Constantin Le Cabinotier Barclay Grand Complication. What an absolute cannon of a watch. It's big enough to hide a child in and heavy enough to kill a bear with, and yet somehow it's still more elegant than a Chanel Snowdrift. It's like the world's best biscuit tin. If I could, I'd fill it with old buttons and pieces of string. Blimey, that's the top 100 best watches ever in the world, and I'm sure you completely agree with every single one. Let me know how much you agree in the comments below. And thanks as always goes to my amazing Patreons who keep me both humbled and blessed. You can join them via the link in the description. And don't forget, if you want to get a Red Bell Canto for yourself, there's a link for that too. Remember, if you can't get what you want, simply set fire to everyone else's. That way no one can have one. See you next time.